Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational preview show. First off, thank you for stopping by. I'm going to go as usual and break down the course. We're going to look at all the stroking, key stat categories. We're going to do a little bit of recap on, of course, the Olympics, and also go over all the models and analysis that you have grown to love. So again, thanks for stopping by, and let's get into this. Okay, so first off, I don't know how many of you guys got to watch or enjoyed the Olympics men's golf. I'll give you my kind of view on it and just some other topics on it. But in short, I thought the first couple days was a little hard to get into. Of course, the timing of when the tournament started for us, at least on the East Coast, maybe if you live on the West Coast, might have been a little better. But on the East Coast, they were teeing off around 6:30. It was kind of cool to watch golf at prime time. The problem was they had rain delays on Thursday and Friday, so that kind of hurt things. But all in all, I mean, I think Sunday actually turned into a really cool tournament, especially from Olympic side. You had so many things changing. You had big names at the top. Of course, how it all shook out was kind of amazing to me. If you think about it, you had Rory Sabatini showing, really no life. I forgot what they said his last win. I think it was like 10 years ago. From a standpoint of Rory Sabatini, I've played him on Showdown here or there, mostly on kind of alternate tournaments or tournaments with not the strongest field. I would actually plug him in as a Showdown. As you see, he can get very streaky. Also saw something where it was kind of interesting where on Sunday, before he went out, that, on the range, he was struggling quite a bit. And then, of course, and somehow goes out and shoots a 61. And then he has CT Pan, of course, who won the bronze. That was maybe the most amazing thing out of the whole tournament, as in if you look at the 7 guys that were in that playoff, and if they would have had just a bet for that, which, as far as I saw, they did not, he would have had to have been the highest odds to win out of that group. I mean, you had Rory McIlroy, you had Hideki Matsuyama, you had, Munoz, Mito Pereira, you had Paul Casey. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone, but, and that he came out of that group winning that playoff. I think it ended up going like 4 or 5 holes. After Xander won, which was about 3:15 Eastern time, I was done and did not actually watch the playoff, considering my thoughts is it could go, they might have to, because I think it gets dark there around 6:30. 6:45, so I wasn't going to be shocked if they actually had to, take another day to get that playoff done. But long story short, I think it took about 4 or 5 holes. CT Pan, who actually, that was the one guy on all this that I did not have. And of course, Xander winning, the goal, which was, I talked about very early on. For me, it was really a toss-up between Morikawa and Xander, who you wanted to start your lineups with. I was, leaning a little bit towards Morikawa. On that note, I actually put in 50 entries into it. It was $10 into the large game. At one time, I don't even think it was one of these. I had a build with Carlos Ortiz in it, and it was, I think, got up to 12th at one time on Sunday. And then once Carlos Ortiz just blew up, and I think he ended up shooting like 5 or 6 over, something like that, away went that. But I was, pretty happy that out of 50 entries, I had one, and I think it was out of 82,000 entries total. Had one that ended up 91st, and one that ended up 105th. It actually made money, shockingly enough. It's kind of tough to do if you don't, of course, hit something top 10 in the big GPPs, but, actually made money overall. And so that was good. And that's really it. I mean, if you were doing some showdowns, which you saw, it was trying to figure out the guy who was going to go out and shoot 8 under. We talked about the course, and I was actually really happy, never seen the course, on how well I found the comp courses and everything that I could figure out. I mean, it was, if you hit the fairways, even though they were, a little, tighter, with that Zoysia grass, man, you were going to score. And so you had like Seb Straka shoot a 63 the first day. I had him down here. Kind of didn't do a whole lot after that. I mean, it was even round 2 and then shot 3 under each day. But would have been a great, I did not pick him. I think Norlander would have been more of my pick towards the end. I did have Munoz as a pick. I had Mito as a pick. Of course, Cam Smith was a pick. I picked Morikawa over Xander, and of course had Hovland in there. He didn't come around till Sunday. Trying to think, I had Johnny Vegas as a pick. So I picked 10 guys, and the 10 guys I picked, of course, that's what I built these lineups with, and then sprinkled in Even like a Rory Sabatini, as you see, I did have him. He was less than 4% owned, but I had no, as far as I remember, I don't think I had any CT pan. So anyways, that was it. I hope you guys did well. I think from a pick perspective, the 10 guys I picked out of the 60 was, pretty solid. Of course, you're not going to hit them all. But, I was pretty happy, and overall, like I said, did pretty well. Okay. For me, that was enough. Like I said, I thought it was pretty cool. I watched quite a bit more of this than I ever did in 2016. So from that perspective, I think if they would have had fans there, I don't really still know. I feel like Japanese fans would be a bit more quiet, but you could really tell. It was weird. I didn't think not having fans at an event. Of course, they had a few people there from that were coaches and people that were working the actual tournament. But I could tell. I mean, it was kind of, eerie quiet. And it's too bad. I mean, I think it was stated multiple times on the broadcast. It'd have been pretty cool if they would have had fans there. But hopefully 2023, I believe, which is going to be in France, it'll be a little different. Okay, enough about the Olympics. Let's get into the WGC FedEx St. Jude. Okay, so we are heading back to the States and going to Memphis, Tennessee. Of course, the course is going to be TPC Southwind. And the St. Jude Classic was here for almost like 30 years. In 2019, it actually became a WGC event. So really, this event that we're going to be talking about is a little new from that perspective. We've had two winners, Brooks Koepka and Justin Thomas. But in short, we've got a lot of history at TPC Southwind. Of course, the course changed quite a bit, to accommodate a WGC event. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then lastly, which, I don't think this really matters for this, but the architect is Ron Prichard back in 1988. Okay. It is a par 70. It's a shorter course, about 7,200 yards. And funny enough, the fairways are Zoysia, which I don't think I use that as a reference, probably because of distance. It's quite a bit different. It's also a par 70. But it is unique, as I mentioned before, that the fairways are Zoysia. We talked a bit about this, of course, on the Olympics preview, where you've got the Byron Nelson courses, which would have been Trinity and TPC Craig Ranch. Also, we got the 2018 PGA Championship at Belle Reve was Zoysia. I think that's it. There might have been one other I forgot. But anyways, a little unique. But again, we know you just see how the ball sits up perfect in the fairways. And then, of course, you've got Bermuda Rough being a southern course in the States. The rough, what it's stating, is only at 2.5 inches, so that should not be an issue. Where you can see, depending on where you landed over at the Olympics in the rough, there were some rough areas pretty high. From a green perspective, you got Champion Bermuda, so Bermuda Rough, Bermuda Greens, Zoysia Fairways. And then the player field, like a WGC event, is a bit smaller than we're used to. It is a no-cut event. You got 66 players. And we've got 2 winning scores. I'm really going to keep a focus on just the last 2 events at TPC South, not the previous. So you had Justin Thomas, who won just recently at 13 under, or the previous. And then, of course, you had Brooks in 2019, who won at 16 under. So they can score here, but it's not as, it's not a 20 under. It's not going to be a putting contest or a shootout, at least from what we've seen from the last 2 years. You've got smaller greens, almost maybe on par with Pebble Beach at 4,300 square feet. So the greens are smaller than average PGA Tour greens, which I always think is like around 5,500 square feet. You got 75 sand bunkers all over the place. You got 11 holes that actually water does come into play. And I just put that, some of this is a little similar to TPC Twin Cities that they just played the 3M Open. So something we could also maybe look at. And I didn't get a stimp meter reading on these greens, but the previous years, they ran fast, not lightning. So if I had to take my guess, that's somewhere between 11 or 12 on the stimp meter. TPC, as I mentioned, the WGC event used to be held at Firestone, which was a longer course. So you used to always look at guys that had, long, could hit the ball a long ways. But, what is shown over the past is that, good drivers are needed. Distance is not as maybe needed as comparative to making sure you're hitting fairways. And then just some side note, back in 2020, as I mentioned, they made some changes to the course. Number 7 fairway was resurfaced and extended 15 yards. Number 3 was shifted to the right and added 15 yards and has a new tee. And then they did a whole kind of renovation of bunkers, some reshaping of bunkers, and so on. So again, that kind of goes back to, getting this thing ready for the WGC. And then I always like to provide you guys kind of an understanding of the course. If you don't remember or haven't seen it, this is the part where I always tell you, go check out the St. Jude, round highlights on YouTube. Again, they're about 2 minutes in length for each of the rounds. That's going to give you the best understanding. But I'll give you a little bit of walkthrough and give you just some notes that I have on the holes, just so you can get a good understanding. First, I'll just kind of go over the notes. So what I've got here is that 4 of the 5 toughest par 4s are number 5, 7, 17, and 18. They're all over 450 yards. So there's actually 6 of those we're going to talk about. Very long par 4s. I think what I've got here is each of these holes have only allowed about 30% of birdies on the PGA Tour Pro. So, tough to get the birdies, need to manage them, get their pars. The toughest par 3 is number 14, and that's at the longest one, which is 195 yards. The 2 easiest scoring holes, of course, are the par 5s, number 3 and 16. And what else I got here? Of course, they have a signature par 3, which is number 11, which is like a TPC Sawgrass. Number 17, it is an island green, but only playing 160 yards. And I already mentioned that there's 11 water hazards, lakes, ponds, there's even some streams. And so that said, if you kind of just look and we walk through this real fast, number 1, you can see, the water really shouldn't come into play. They should drive that with no problem. I think I picked out there's like 3 holes that have water. So you have number 3, that definitely water could come into play off the tee or on your approach. And then number 4, you've got water in front of this kind of par 3 here. And then that's pretty much it from a water perspective on the front. I take that back. And then number 9, again, water comes into play. Looks like mostly on your approach shot to the green. Nothing you should be able to definitely manage not driving it in there. Then it seems like water is a little more prevalent on the backside. So you got, number 10, looks like more on the approach you could have the issue. You got that number 11 island green, of course, purely that's surrounded by water, so that could be an issue all the way around. Could be also a blow-up hole, which we've seen at number 17 at TPC Sawgrass. You got number 12, looks like water comes into play the whole way on the hole. 13, just sand and, some trees. 14, you got water on the green. 15, you got this stream that comes in on the approach around the green. 16 just looks like a lot more sand. 17, you can see again, you've got this little stream that could come in off the drive. You got to, manage that. And then 18, you've got water running the whole way. So definitely the last 2 holes on this course can change some outcomes, and there's tougher handicap holes in it. So it's one of those things that, if it's a one shot or you're even going in, things could definitely change on Sunday on 17 and 18. And then just to get a little better perspective of that, so, you kind of open up, I'd say it's kind of an easy handshake. You got 2 gettable par 4 and a par 5 right off the bat on 2 and 3. One of the tougher par 4s is number 5. You got another one on 7. And then as you make the turn, you've got this par 4 here, which comes into play a little bit worse. The toughest par 3 I mentioned, number 14. And then I mentioned the last 2 holes could definitely change your outcomes. And then you got, this par 5 again, very gettable. So as I mentioned, the 2 easiest holes is number 3 and again, number 5, both the par 5. So you definitely got to make your hay on those, as you typically do on PGA tournament courses. And then really nothing too crazy on this past course conditions to really look at. I mentioned the green speed just came in as fast. For whatever reason, hitting fairways on this one day was difficult, even though the wind says calm. I would have to guess there had to be some wind issues or some weather that changed that. Green firmness, medium, but that was back in 2019. And really nothing else to point out that, really sticks out to me from past conditions. But I wanted to just give you guys a look for the past 2 years here. And then, breaking down the skill set of what players we want to plug in to win the WGC St. Jude. This is where I kind of go through and rate the stroke gain analysis. The number 1 that keeps the show up is, of course, approach, which is, pretty typical. So we're looking from, fairway in. Ball striking, because there is some longer par 4s and some, a bulk, almost 50% of the shots coming in are 150 or over. That always lends to good ball strikers. putting. And it's funny, we're going to look at the two winners and break how they did from a stroke gain. But putting does show up that you need to be good at that. And approach was kind of the top two stroke gain categories. I could have went with driving distance and fairways gained. But usually when you get into these shorter courses, if you look at like Harbor Town or Sea Island, the one that I think is, works best is good drives. And this is guys that are just worried about hitting fairways or first cut of rough and then, reaching the green on their approach is kind of what good fairways looks at. Around the greens, I still think it's going to be important. So I plugged that in. I mentioned the proximity to the pins that I'm going to be focusing on. And then you got these long par 4, 6 of them that they need to manage. Get your pars, maybe, squeak out a birdie on 1 or 2 of them. But there's, the 450 to 500s. And then the 2 easy gettable par 5s. So take that all into effect. Oh, and then last, I always like to verify what I just kind of stated. How I do that is I always look at the last 2 winners, which that's all we have at this event, at this course. And it's kind of funny, actually. There's really not a whole lot you can compare, as in the putting. You can see Brooks won it with the putter, getting almost 9 strokes, where it's very rare that you see someone actually lose almost 2 strokes putting and still win. That means that, he was gaining either, chipped in a few of these. Something was happening around the greens, but you can see he gained a ton on approach, which that's what JT does. Not a whole lot with the driver. So off the tee, not really super significant. Approach is definitely something that you can see showed up on both. But around the green is different. You can see they kind of flip-flopped where, Brooks was draining a lot of putts from distance. And looks like JT, was chipping it either within a foot or chipping it in. And again, I don't remember off the top of my head on all that, but just from what the stroke gain is telling me, that is the area. So really, again, hitting fairways is key, or keeping the ball at least in play and out of the water. But approach is where it's really all going to come down, as I see. So with all that said, as I always do, I create a first kind of larger model. This is looking at just recent form, no filters on. So looking over the past 12 rounds. And the funny thing is right when I got done completing all this models, of course, the salaries finally popped. And so I redid them so I could show you guys where these guys fall within salaries. The number one that points out to me the biggest value play, and of course, pricing is going to be softer. And what I mean by that is because we have such an elite field that you're getting guys like Terrell Hatton at $7,400. I mean, one of the guys that I thought of that's a great fit for this course. I know his recent form hasn't been the greatest, but I think that's the biggest steal I've seen so far off just, the first pass. I think Harris English is also a pretty nice value at $7,600. You can see that right here. Sunjay M, who had that 63, I believe, on Saturday at the Olympics, coming out $7,700 is a pretty nice value. And then Sergio, a master of hitting fairways and great with the ball striking. Of course, the putter can be off and on. Maybe another great value at $7,300. So anyways, kind of getting a little ahead of myself. But with this model, what I weighted the heaviest was approach, ball striking next, putting next, good drives. So these are the 4 largest percentages weighted in good drives. And then the next ones, I already kind of mentioned around the green, the proximities, the long par 4s, the easy gettable par 5s. I plugged in sand saves because there's quite a bit of sand, of course. So I think that's applicable. And then, of course, we need guys to make birdies. That was my overall model that I ran. You click my rank, give me my top 20 guys out of the 66. And this is how it fell down over the last 12 rounds. And again, I kind of mentioned where I think I see the values from first pass. And then the next thing I want to do is always look at the history of these guys at TPC Southwind. And I only wanted to look over the last 2 years. So that's 8 rounds. You're going to see some that might have 6. You're going to see some guys that only played here once, like Morikawa's got 4. I could have done a longer history at TPC Southwind, but the course changed a bit to where I think, it's not applicable. So let's just look at the last 2 years. It gives us also better recent form. And under that same model, click my rank, and this is what we get. And of course, I'm just filtering TPC Southwind. And number 1 is Koepka, which that makes sense, right? Past winner. You also got JT, past winner. Stuart Sink, from a value perspective, had some good showings here over the last 8 rounds. And I'd have to look. I did not verify he might have not played in the last 2 WGC, so that might be older data that's pulling. But again, we know he's in great form. Daniel Berger's had good showings here. I believe he was in a playoff, either that was 2019 or previous. But anyways, just to give you guys some ideas. And then I went ahead and did comp courses right off the bat because, I think it's a good way to start get the mind working on what we want to reference. And usually I do a little more, so I might add a few comp courses, but right now I like these 6 that I have. 5 of these are par 70 in Bermuda, except for the Players is Bermuda Greens, but it's a par 72. But the Honda, which has a lot of water, probably my PGA National, which I think is the best comp course, which I'd weight the heaviest. You got East Lake, the Tour champion, also a par 70 Bermuda. You got Sedgefield, where the Wyndhams played, par 70 Bermuda. RSM at Sea Island, again, par 70 Bermuda. And last but not least, Wailea, where the Sony Open play. Kevin Na, who's also in this field. I think it's not a bad play. I think he's in the 6,000s, another good value. So that's the comp courses I'm going with. And 5 of these were in this model. The TPC Sawgrass was not. And so I ran this again against looking at these comp courses. And if you look at the recent 12 rounds, again, makes sense. Brooks Koepka, Justin Thomas pop up the first 2. You got Morikawa, Matt Jones, the Australian, who had a great showing at the Honda and won the Honda. Trying to see anybody else sticks out. Joaquin Niemann. You got Stink popping in there again. And Siwoo Kim, again at 6,400. Kind of, I think, fits this type of track. Of course, did well at the Players. Just so, again, some names for you to look at and get your mind thinking about who you might want to roster or bet. And on that note, I haven't got into it, but typically I've been wanting to do my favorite bets, kind of the early bird bets. And right now, for whatever reason, DraftKings got the player pricing out, which I think is weird that that's already out. Typically, they always wait on the betting odds. But right now, we have this is like around 4 o'clock Eastern, and we still don't have betting odds out anywhere that I've seen on Odds Checker, or if you pull up DraftKings where I do my bets, it's still not there. So I don't know what's going on. This happened, a couple of Mondays where for some reason they're taking a little longer to get the odds out. Okay, so I always kind of give you guys a couple models at the end that I think are maybe the most important, and I would put this one up there. This is the no-cut event, so this is taking the field, using the model that I like from a stroke gain side. And over the last 12 rounds, look at how they've done in no-cut events. And I already mentioned Terrell Hatton pops up there. Of course, this information would be pulled from things like the WGC Mexico that was played at concession. That was a par 72. Also Bermuda. It's also going to pull on things like maybe the Zozo, the CJ Cup. So pretty relatively within the super season. You're going to have that kind of information. And like I said, you got T-Hat, you got Colin Morikawa, Brooks Koepka, JT again up there. Webb Simpson, which, I think is interesting, right? You got the Wyndham as a comp course who just, he kills Wyndham. You got Siwoo again that I mentioned popped up there. Berger. These are the guys that, ultimately right off the top of my, off my head that I think this course is just going to fit and they should do really well here. So again, some more names and a different way to look at the information. Okay, and then the last model that I think is very applicable that we want to look at is Bermuda putters. So out of this 66 players, who are the best putters on Bermuda over the last 12 rounds? And if you quickly look, the number 1 is Abraham Ancer. And this is pulling up data. We got to remember, it's been a little while since they've been on Bermuda for some of these guys. So the PGA Championship back at Kiowa Island, the Ocean Course, that was Bermuda, Wells Fargo. Maybe the Valspar. You've got the courses like that. Again, it's been a little while, probably since they've been on Bermuda. You got guys that typically we want to, are good putters, and we know that. You got Fitzpatrick, Cameron Smith, Joaquin Niemann. Kokrak has been doing amazing. Victor Hovland's definitely improved on his putting. Brian Harmer, a good putter. DeChambeau. Louis been leading the PGA Tour. So these guys, of course, Horschel on Bermuda is always very sound. Trying to see if anybody else stands out. Ryan Palmer can be hit or miss. And then Garrick Higo, I would guess that's considering Palmetto, which off the top of my head, I don't know if that is Bermuda, but it has to be. Then Patrick Reed, which I've kind of mentioned, he's fallen a little bit on the putting. So again, giving you the top 20 guys, best Bermuda putters out of this 66 field. And this is the part where I go over my early favorite bets, but I can't do that because I don't have any odds. But without having odds, I would probably just say Terrell Hatton would be one of my early bets. Kevin Na, seeing where they're coming in from a DraftKings perspective, I'm guessing from an odds perspective, hopefully they have pretty good odds. So again, as I always do, I'm going to stick with a little higher odds. This is a tournament that, some of the guys that are lower down could be very live. And that's it. That's going to conclude. I hope that gives you some good information, some names to start thinking about who you want to pick from a DFS perspective. And also, as soon as we can do some bets, also give you some information to make some educated bets before you just, throw out some names. So as always, if you like how I do what I do, please click the like button, share with anybody else that you think. If you've not subscribed, I am on the move to get 1,000 subscribers here by the end of the FedEx playoffs. I'm going to be doing a giveaway. I was actually going to put it in here, but maybe for the next show tomorrow, I will announce the giveaway. It's going to be pretty lucrative to really get over that hump to 1,000 subscribers. And if I can help you, as always, hit me up on YouTube comments or on Twitter at DFS Golf Guru. Excited for this event, and we just have this and another, and of course you got also what Barracuda's run at the same time. Probably not going to do anything for Barracuda, as in from a show. If you have any questions about it though, I could do some analysis. Just hit me up on YouTube or Twitter, and I'll answer anything that you're thinking. If I might put some bets on Barracuda. If I do that, I'll let you guys know who I like. I'll share that also. Okay, and so yeah, listen for tomorrow's show where I do my picks. And I will also talk about my giveaway that's going to be going over the next few tournaments. And excited to have another WGC and then get into FedEx playoffs. All right, guys, take care. Check me out tomorrow. I will release my show around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I should have my picks out. Talk to you then.